Here we go. All right. What'd you just say, Scruff? Punch it, Chewy?
Punch it, Chewy.
Punch it, Chewy.
Shut up.
And now, on with the show.
Time for bladder check. Check.
Check.
Check. Wait. Screw it. I'm holding it.
Podcasting, the final audio frontier. These are the legends of Brown Squadron.
Our computer is picking up a strange signal. Here, sir, you better take a look at it.
The ongoing mission? To explore the Star Wars universe and other nerd culture topics. To seek new content and new cantinas, bars, and lounges. To boldly annoy Scruffy by making too many bad jokes. Welcome to the Hyperspace Heroes Podcast.
All right, and welcome to Hyperspace Heroes. This is Brown Leader signing in. All wings report in.
Brown 2 is here, signing in.
All right, Brown 2, awesome. Scruffy, good to see you. Brown 4 is on special assignment tonight, so he is not going to be joining us. But we have a third person joining us tonight.
I think he bailed on us because it's his birthday. We were going to
that's possible.
Do some terrible things to him.
I had a whole montage ready for him too, or a short little montage. But
we'll pull it out later.
Maybe
We'll save it for him.
We can. You want to show the graphic? I can show the graphic.
Oh, show the graphic. Yes.
All right. Yeah. So DB, happy birthday, sir.
Happy birthday, DB.
So hopefully he'll be on back next week. But
we got to explain the picture. ICCC, we were there. He was participating in trivia, and out of the blue, he walked away and came and sat down next to us. And suddenly, the guy running the trivia thing said, "Hey, where'd Rob Halford go?"
Yep.
And of course, I lost it, as
right.
I am just not mature enough to be in to know something like that. So he's been Rob Halford ever since.
Absolutely. That's been our running gag. All night. So yeah, it's or all 2 years now, I think.
2 years,
been, right?
2 years
going on
Rob Halford.
Yeah, Rob Halford. So we've got a special guest on tonight. We've got film actor, director, producer Erik Sharkey with us tonight. He has produced and put out quite some films. Featuring 2007's pop star Private Eye, which we're definitely going to be talking about because there's some Adam West things in there that we definitely want to dive into. 2013 Drew, the man behind the poster. And if you've seen any iconic movie posters in your time, that is
any movie poster pretty
much. Yeah. I mean, the man changed the industry, and it is an awesome documentary. The 2016 Floyd Norman, an animated life documentary, and an upcoming documentary about Greg Hildabrandt. So he's going to be joining us. Before we dive into that, though, real quick, Scruff, we just passed May 4th. Did you do anything special for May 4th?
Well, oh my word, I forgot to bring my blue milk down with me. Okay, here was my May 4th. I came downstairs, I sat in the man cave, I turned on Star Wars. I watched the Tales of the Empire. I drank blue milk, ate cereal, ate some frozen pizza, some chicken nuggets and tater tots for dinner. I watched A New Hope because you cannot have Star Wars Day without what started it all, A New Hope.
Right.
I watched a little bit of Phantom Menace because it's the 25th anniversary, and of course I had to go see that in the theater later on that week. But that was my May the 4th.
Rock on,
Star Wars all day long, sitting on the couch with the dog, or I should say Chewy, watching Star Wars.
So I spent about 9 hours thatching my yard. on May 4th. So
that is very unnerd.
No,
That
well,
is so not nerd.
here's my Star Wars tie-in. So Brownie 2, my daughter.
There's a Star Wars tie-in.
Here's my Star Wars tie-in to Thatching.
Yes,
Yes, here it is. So Brownie 2 and 2.5.
I love that it's 2 and 2.5.
Well, it's my daughter and her fiance, right? So they went to on May 4th. They went to for like a couple's dinner at a place in Detroit that was doing a Star Wars trivia, and so and they watched Star Wars. In fact, one of their questions led to one of our episode topics way back. And oh, by the way, where am I? Hyperspace Heroes epised 87.
Oh yes, episode 87.
So
what's the Spotchka timeline? Is
112 on the Spotchka timeline.
Yes.
So way back, they actually contributed to the topic about who had the highest midichlorian count, and that was an episode we did way back.
Yes, I remember that episode.
So
I think we had an argument.
Yeah, so she knows Star Wars. She's watched Star Wars, but they went to like I said, they went out to dinner with another couple. They were doing a Star Wars trivia night, and I was their ringer for this trivia. And so she had me on. First, she was trying to call me from the bathroom, so she wasn't giving it away. But then, then she resorted to just texting me the questions. And funny enough, they were in the lead until her phone died and she couldn't text me anymore, and then they slipped to 4th place. But so that is my Star Wars tie-in. Yeah, so you know what, yard work, but in the end it was a good Star Wars day because I was helping my daughter. So that's
a good Star Wars day for sure. I'm really disappointed. I bought the blue milk. I have the blue milk.
I was gonna make a crack about being drunk on it, but I forgot mine upstairs as well. So
I don't know what's up. What the heck is up with us? What nerds are we?
We got to download that Wilford Brimley diabetes.
Yes, because there's a lot of sugar in that blue milk.
Gosh, is there a lot of sugar, especially for guys our age? Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, sadly, yes.
I think I texted you as soon as I saw the
Yes,
label.
you did. Mm-hmm. It tastes like diabetes. But all right. Well, let's enough of that. Let's bring our guest on board, Mr. Erik Sharkey. Like I said, actor, filmmaker, director, producer. I can talk tonight. I honestly did not have any blue milk before this. So you sound like you're drunk on blue milk.
I do. So all right, let's bring him in now. Erik, welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, man. It is an honor to have you.
That's too kind of you. Thank you guys so much for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Erik, I kind of went through a little quick rundown of your some of the movies you produced, but tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I am a total film nerd, and because of that, I make a lot of films that I think the nerd community would really enjoy. As you were saying, my first film that I directed was a campy comedy called Pop Star Private Eye, about a pop star who is also a private detective who has to stop an evil robot boy band created by Adam West. And Adam West is actually in the movie. Yes. He plays the villain in the movie. That's awesome. It's so campy that Davy Jones from the Monkees sang an original theme song for it. And because of that movie, Drew Struzan actually did the poster for that movie.
Wow.
And if you don't know who Drew Struzan is, he did many Star Wars posters. He did posters for the original trilogy. He did the Return of the Jedi poster, that famous image of Darth Vader and Luke and Darth Vader fighting, which was originally Revenge of the Jedi. But he did the special edition posters. He did the prequel posters and tons of Star Wars artwork. And luckily, because he's a nice guy, I begged him to do the poster for Pop Star Private Eye. I had no right to ask him to do a poster for my silly little movie. But I told him what a fan I was, how his posters were on my wall growing up, and that if I ever got to direct a movie, my dream was to have Drew Struzan do the poster. And that connected with him. He was touched by it. And to my shock, he agreed. But then he told me, well, you're going to have to wait about a month because I have to finish up the Indiana Jones poster for the new movie. So I was like, wait a second. You're going to do my silly little pop star PI poster after you do The Last Crusade? No, not The Last Crusade. Crystal Skull poster.
Wow.
So I was like, okay, that doesn't seem to make sense. Indiana Jones and in my silly little movie.
Wow.
But he was
awesome.
kind enough to do it. And that led to me making a documentary about Drew called Drew, the Man Behind the Poster. And because he is so beloved in the industry, George Lucas did an interview for the film. Steven Spielberg did an interview. Harrison Ford, Michael J. Fox, and many others. And then that led me to doing a documentary about a Disney legend named Floyd Norman. That was a movie I made with another filmmaker named Michael Fiore. And Floyd is the first African-American artist to ever work for Disney. He worked on classics like Sleeping Beauty and The Jungle Book. He worked with Walt Disney directly. He's still working as an artist now in his 80s. He worked at Pixar. He's worked on so many cool projects. And now I'm making a documentary about Greg Hildabrandt. Him and his brother Tim were known as the Hildabrandt brothers. And they did a very, very famous poster for the original Star Wars. And he's continued to do a lot of Star Wars artwork through the years with his brother Tim, and now on his own because sadly his brother Tim passed. But he's in his 80s, still working as an artist, and he's an amazing guy. So
that's cool.
Sorry for yapping on and on.
No,
but I tell you about my movies.
And we're going to expand upon those. But before we get into each of those, I want to, we always ask our guests, the first question we always get kind of right off the bat is, what does Star Wars mean to you?
Oh, sure. Well, I'm an old man, so I saw the original Star Wars in the theater. When I first saw it, I was 5 years old. I was very young at the time. But it blew my brain, man. I mean, come on. I mean, when you're a 5-year-old kid and you go into a theater and you see Darth Vader on the big screen and you see the Millennium Falcon and Han Solo and the lightsabers. I mean, it was overwhelming. I mean, the story, the characters, just the concepts of the Force and lightsabers, the sound effects, the art direction. The music by John Williams, it just was so overwhelming. And that's when I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. George Lucas was the first filmmaker I had ever heard of. Like, he was the first filmmaker I knew by name.
Right.
And because they put out those great making ofs, I saw sort of how it's done. And that's when it hit me. Oh, this is a job. Like, somebody's job is to make Star Wars. That's like the career. So that's what made me want to be a filmmaker.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And do you want to ask Scruffy since Stevie's not here? Yeah.
What was your first Star Wars memory?
The first memory was seeing the films. Honestly enough, I went into it blind. I had not seen trailers or commercials or anything. So I just sat there and was like, whoa. And then my early memories would have to be of the toys, because after you fell in love with the movie, you were like, oh, I want to keep doing Star Wars stuff, playing with your friends, lightsaber battles with your friends with sticks and stuff, eventually gets old. And then I'm old enough to remember that for Christmas, you didn't get action figures. You got a cardboard cutout that said, at some point in the future, you will get action figures. And I love the movie so much. And I was just excited about a cardboard box. I mean,
yeah, that is something that nobody got excited about a cardboard box back then. And thus it had Star Wars on it and said, someday you're going to get. I'm like, awesome.
Yeah, and I remember those original action figures, they didn't have a wide variety. So it was just like, they didn't even have Han Solo. You just got like Luke, I believe it was Luke, Leia, and R2-D2, and maybe one other.
Stormtrooper, the first 12, yep. Jawa, Sand Person, Death Star Commander, Death Star Droid, R2, 3PO. Yep.
But I cherish those action figures. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. On the other side of the room over there is on the wall is a case with all the original action figures in it. And
wow.
some of those were ours when we were a kid. I say ours because they were my brother and I.
Wow.
Some of those are still my originals.
Oh, I miss my originals. I had them in storage at my mom's house, and she had a fire. They all burnt up.
What a shame.
I know. The good thing is my mom was okay and nobody got hurt, which is the blessing there. But yeah, I lost all my old stuff. So.
Yeah, we had that happen to a friend of ours too, Scott Baker, and who's a friend of ours and been on the show too. He does he does My 2D, was it My 2D Heroes? Yeah.
Yep.
And same thing, except it was his house and everything burned down, and thankfully nobody was hurt and everything. But yeah, I lost all of his
the
originals.
shame in his loss was his grandmother, I think, worked for Kenner.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the stuff he had was Kenner prototypes and stuff that she brought home from Kenner for him. Like some of the original 12 figures, still sealed and everything, he had in his collection that were given to him by his grandmother that she brought home from Kenner.
Wow, because that stuff's got to be insanely valuable. That's that's very rare.
Yes, especially in the condition he had some of that stuff. It was just amazing. But what a shame.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that Star Wars was kind of the inspiration to get you into filmmaking. So what can you kind of tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a filmmaker?
Sure. And like I said, because I'm old, I made Super 8 movies as a kid on actual film. We didn't have phones. We didn't have cell phones, period. But we certainly did have cell phones where you could take video. So you had to actually put film in a camera. And so I made Super 8 movies. My early movies were like stop motion Star Wars movies. They were like the action figures fighting and stuff. And I kept making movies. I kept doing that. And then I went to film school. I went to a school in Brooklyn named Pratt Institute. I live in New York City. I took film classes there. When I got out, I started doing corporate video, which is really, really boring, but it was a living.
It pays the bills.
Yeah. And then I segued into entertainment. I started by shooting a lot of music related stuff. What's really funny is I've done a really good shoot with Rob Halford from Judas Priest, who, by the way, is one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life.
I have never. I always wanted to meet him. There's just some artists I've always wanted to meet. Alice Cooper. I've always wanted to meet Alice Cooper. Rob Halford.
I've never met Alice Cooper, but I was lucky that I did a full day shoot.
Yes, there he is. Yes,
I did a full day shoot with Rob Halford, who couldn't have been nicer. I did a shoot with Bruce Dickinson, the singer from Iron Maiden.
Wow,
that was great.
I was never a huge Iron Maiden fan, but he is an amazing individual.
Yeah.
Highly intelligent, highly accomplished, a professional pilot. He's got doctorate degrees. He's an amazing individual.
That voice, man.
And the voice.
Wow.
Between him and Rob Halford, as they age, that voice has not changed. And that's just amazing that they're still holding on to it. They're still making it happen today.
They're incredible. And, Rob Halford is a tall guy. He's a sizable guy. But what shocked me is Bruce Dickinson was very short. And when I saw him
5'6", 5'7",
yeah, something like that. I towered over him. But for me as a kid, I loved Iron Maiden. So all those videos, he looked so huge. But yeah, I love those bands. So I started doing a lot of I shot lots of interviews with musicians for documentaries, for TV outlets. I did a lot of
awesome.
Live shooting. So I shot with a lot of bands live. I mean, I did shoot to lots of bands, Tesla, 38 Special, a lot of hip hop too. I did DMX and Dougie Fresh, Jay-Z.
Dougie Fresh?
Before he was really
awesome.
famous. Yeah, Dougie Fresh. I love Dougie Fresh. The human beatbox. Another super nice guy. But yeah, so I segued into doing music doc related stuff into finally deciding I got to make my own feature film. This is my dream. I got to do it. So, and I wanted to do it before film was phased out because I've always wanted to shoot a movie on film. So I did, I wrote and directed Pop Star Private Eye. I was able to raise the money for it. Luckily, it was easier to raise money back then because a lot of movies made money on DVD. Like there was a real DVD market at the time.
Mhm.
So, you know, you make a DVD, it costs $1 or $2, and you sell it for 20. There was a huge markup. The indie filmmakers could really make money at that time before streaming. But I made the film. I somehow talked Adam West into being in it, who
That is
couldn't have been
awesome.
nicer.
You somehow talked Adam West into being in the movie. It's just awesome.
You know what I've learned by making these movies is that if you just ask, a lot of times people
what's
say
the worst
yes.
they can do is say no? Well,
Exactly.
Okay, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
And you
right?
haven't
What the
lost
heck?
anything. But if you're a nice person, if you're doing, and if it's a project that they go, oh, this could be cool, you know. Adam West loves doing comedy. He loves it. And so I wrote an absurd movie where he had an absurd part in it. He just had one question. He said, he says, I want to do the movie. I just have one question. Is this intentionally stupid or it's just stupid? And I said, no, it's intentionally stupid. It's stupid on purpose. It's not an accident.
So, okay, then we're good.
Then he's like, I'm in. And the best thing is that I wrote all these crazy lines for him, but he kept wanting the dialogue to be even dumber. And so we would go back and forth. Oh, how can we make this even stupider? And some of the craziest lines are stuff he came up with. And, you know, he clearly at that time was doing Family Guy. So he was just like, oh, no, I like the dumber, the better. That's how Adam West liked it.
Oh, that's hilarious.
See, I love the scene he did in Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yeah, right. Wasn't he great?
I love that scene. They didn't need to put muscles in my suit. That's 100% 80 grade West.
I love it because he's so self-aware. He's like, I am aware of the Adam West persona. I'm aware that my cadence is pretty odd. I mean, if you think about the three actors with the sort of craziest deliveries in terms of the way they time their voice, it's like Adam West, William Shatner, and Christopher Walken. They just all speak in a very weird manner that you can't help but love. You know?
Absolutely.
For sure. And then, so that kind of actually answers a question that we had submitted from Brownie One. Wanted to hear what it was like working with Adam West, and and it fits other stories we've heard about him too. You know, he just loves the absurd and loves the fun, and you can hear it. Even in the Family Guy stuff, you can hear the self-awareness in his acting for sure.
And he's extremely nice. I mean, that's the thing where I really lucked out because I've worked on some big studio films back in the day, and you hear crew members talking about, you know, this actor was mean to me, that actor's mean to me, in terms of big stars, you know. And there's a lot of actors that are in B movies that can be jerks, to be honest, you know. And I'm a first-time filmmaker, so I'm in awe of him because I love Batman as a kid. You know, he was my Batman as a child. And he just was so overwhelmingly nice and supportive. He did not have to contribute his own ideas. He could have just said, all right, I'm going to go do the lines and get out of here. But he hung around and said, oh, I want to work on this with you. Let's have fun. You know, he got into the spirit of it. And he was nice to the whole crew. He took pictures with the entire crew. And so he was really nice. Same thing with Davy Jones. He couldn't have been nicer. Just a kind, sweet guy. Even after we recorded this theme song, that again is completely absurd. The lyrics in this song are idiotic. And Davy Jones sings them with gusto, like they're like legitimately good lyrics or something. He got the joke, you know.
That's hilarious.
You know, when he would come on tour, every time he came to New York, I'd get invited out. I'd hang out with him. We'd have beers.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so, you know, they were really nice guys. And for someone who's green, for someone who truly didn't deserve to work with guys who are legends like this, they were so nice and supportive of me, which I'll always be grateful for, you know.
That's very cool.
That is awesome.
Cool. Yeah, we got to meet, who was it? Who did we get to meet? Frank Gorshin. We had
oh, wow.
Yeah, we got to meet him. So we work in the gaming side of entertainment, and so we have celebrities come in from time to time, and we had him there along with one of the old Didn't we have a Batmobile there? I think.
Yep,
too,
we had one of the I think it was one of the original Batmobiles.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. I always thought that Batmobile was still kicks ass.
It's still
great.
the most iconic Batmobile. I mean, I don't care what they create. That is in my head is always the Batmobile.
Me too. It's still my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a beautiful car to begin with, that Ford, that Futura. But man, it was that's the ultimate Batmobile there.
Right
I
on.
agree. George
Right
Barris, right? That's who created
George
it.
Barris.
Mhm.
Yep.
Incredible. I mean, the cars he did the Monkeys Mobile, he did the Munsters Mobile. It was like all the coolest cars from that time he did.
I loved Dragula. Dragula was one of my favorites. I always wanted to build my own replica or version of Dragula.
I'm with you. I love it.
I always wanted to build that car, but I'm like, yeah, no, I can't behave driving my Subaru Outback, let alone behave trying to drive something like that.
That's very true. Yeah, Scruffy does have a point there. So how did you get Davy Jones to
tell me
Same thing. Same thing. It was just like I told him, I reached out to his agent. I said, this movie's really silly. It's really campy. It's absurd. Adam West is in it. That really appealed to him because they're from the same era. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And because the Monkeys and Batman were on at the same time.
Yep.
And so he said, okay. I thought when I sent him the lyrics, for sure, which I co-wrote the lyrics with the composer, Dominic Mack. I thought when he got these lyrics that he was going to be like, what? This is too dark.
No.
No, he sang it with gusto. It was
awesome.
Fantastic.
That is awesome. Hey, I got an idea. Maybe you can reach out to James Hetfield and have him record our theme song.
Yeah, I know, right?
Our Hyperspace Hero theme song. He can hook that up for us. So, yeah.
We got to come up with some lyrics first.
Oh, I'll come up with some stupid lyrics. I will.
Right on. So you had mentioned earlier too that you were able to get Drew Struzan, and I did not download this for the show, but I brought it up on the phone so people can see it. But
yes, that's
it. There's the poster that Drew did for Popstar Private Eye, and that's kind of I think a good segue over into that 2013 documentary that you did.
Sure.
And what was the genesis for you going from doing a film to documentary, and especially the Drew Struzan one?
Well, after we did Popstar Private Eye, as a fan, I was just looking for a documentary about Drew Struzan, and I couldn't find one. There was lots of DVD features and shorts, short films about him. I couldn't find a full-blown feature film. And a lot of times as a filmmaker, what you do is you make the film you want to see. So it was like, I want to see a movie about Drew. Mm-hmm. And so me and the producer of the film, Charles Ricciardi, we pitched the idea to Drew to do a documentary. To my surprise, he said yes right away. In that conversation, he said yes. And so it was like, this is awesome. All right, Drew's on board. Then a week later, Drew reaches out to me and says, oh, I spoke to George, talking about George Lucas.
Oh.
He says, yeah, he says he's in. He'll do an interview. Are you guys available in 2 weeks to do an interview with George Lucas at ILM?
Oh, let me think about that for a second.
Like,
yes.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. I mean, you have to understand, I was shocked. And then all of a sudden,
I'll bet.
All of a sudden, this became very real because all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have to shoot with George Lucas in 2 weeks. This has to really happen. And so then we're there at ILM with George Lucas, who was kind enough to give us about 90 minutes, which is a long time, so we did 2 setups with him. We shot an interview with Drew and George together at ILM, looking at some of his original paintings that were hanging up. And then we did a sit-down interview with him as well in one of the boardrooms at ILM. And George Lucas couldn't have been kinder with his time, and he was so supportive throughout the film. But George Lucas getting on board right away really just made things move very quickly. All of a sudden, Steven Spielberg said yes, and then Frank Darabont said yes, and Guillermo del Toro said yes, and Michael J. Fox said yes, and it just kept going and going, and talk about a dream come true. I mean, and Harrison Ford was the one that took the longest. It took about a year to lock down an interview with him. But, seeing Harrison Ford and Drew meet for the first time while we were shooting the film, I couldn't believe it. I assumed that Harrison Ford had met Drew before, but they hadn't. Drew poses for Harrison Ford in those posters when he does Han Solo or Indiana Jones.
Mm-hmm.
But to see them meet, and for me, this kind of nobody from New York City and some nobody from the Bronx, to be actually physically the one to introduce Harrison Ford to Drew Struzan for the first time, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was like I'd gone to geek heaven,
Right.
That's got to be an iconic life moment there for
you. It was amazing.
I've got a couple pictures here that you sent me that I want to show.
Sure.
So here's you at Skywalker Ranch.
And
just the look. There's definitely
cool.
Yeah, definitely can tell the geek pride right there.
My God!
And for those that don't know, there's Drew himself with you in front of some of his work, and then talking about Harrison Ford. There's the proof right there.
That is so awesome.
So
I couldn't believe it, and we were very lucky. We mixed the Drew documentary at Skywalker Ranch, so I got to actually mix the film at the ranch, which was amazing.
Wow,
the cherry on top of the whipped cream on top of the
that is definitely, oh my goodness, with whipped
the ranch
cream, sprinkles and everything.
It's an incredible place. So, and to
I
actually
bet.
have a film there directed by me of all people to be mixed there was incredible. So
that's so. You said you kind of, you sent Drew an email or whatever, said, hey, I'd like to, you had been looking for a documentary about Drew, couldn't find what you were looking for. So did you kind of have did you already know kind of about Drew's life, and was there already a story that you had kind of formed, or was it all just you kind of developed the whole narrative as you were getting all the interviews and the footage put together?
Yeah, I knew nothing about Drew's life, actually. Even being a fan of him as a kid, I had no idea what he looked like. I would just see the signature that said Drew in the corner of the posters. And he did so many of the posters that for films that I loved growing up. Not only did I love the posters, but I loved the films. He did the Back to the Future posters. He did Big Trouble in Little China. He did the Indiana Jones movies. And
that Big Trouble in Little China was just an iconic poster too.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I think that's one of my favorites, and it was funny to hear him in the documentary say that it was one of his least favorites.
Yeah,
because it's so cluttered, and I had never thought about that in terms of comparing it. And
I loved all the clutter and detail to that poster because everywhere you look, there was something different. It was just it was like a Fine Waldo poster. It was just awesome.
Yeah,
I loved it too, and it's one of my favorites. And he was saying that the studio, because he has to make the studio happy, so he has to make a great poster, but also do what the studio wants, and for him, it was like, they just want too many elements in this thing, and to try to juggle them all, it was extremely difficult, and he did it. It's a killer poster. It's an iconic poster. And when Drew does signings, you see that poster all the time. That's one people want signed constantly. So he made it work, even though if he had his choice, it wouldn't have had that many elements, But yeah, so I didn't know anything about him. This is pre-internet, so I couldn't look him up or anything. In fact, I didn't even know what he looked like until I was like in my early 30s.
Yeah, I think I was in my 40s when I finally found a picture of what he looked like, and when I really started getting more interested in who was the creator of these posters. I mean, I knew it was Drew, but didn't really know who he was.
And that was a reason for making the movie, which is for me as a fan, it was like, oh, I want to learn about this guy who did all these posters that I love. And I was also hoping to expose him to a broader audience, because even though everyone has seen his posters, I mean, everyone's seen a Back to the Future poster, you know what I mean? But a lot of people don't think about, well, who painted this? You know what I mean? And so, while making the movie, I learned a lot about Drew, and it's, and when you're not like me and Drew weren't close friends. We knew each other from making this poster and we got along, but we became friends while making the movie, you know, because you gain trust over time. And the more you gain trust, the more they want to open up to you, the more they want to talk to you and reveal things. And I'm very grateful. I mean, I'm so grateful to Drew for saying yes. I'm so grateful for him letting me make this movie, because to be honest, he really should have gotten a bigger filmmaker to make his movie. I mean, considering how iconic his art is, you know, you wouldn't think the guy who did Popstar Private Eye would do this. So he was very kind in taking a chance on me. I mean, he really took a chance, and I think that's based on my sincerity. I'm a huge fan of his, and he knew that. He knows I love his work. And that's why these people showed up to be in the movie. I mean, George Lucas is in the movie because it's Drew's movie and Drew asked him. You know what I mean? That's why Harrison Ford's in the movie.
Right.
But when you think about the fact that that's how much his poster art means to these franchises, where Steven Spielberg says, I'm going to take time out to talk about Drew, where George Lucas does it, where Harrison Ford does it, Michael J. Fox, you know. I had no idea Michael J. Fox was a fan of Drew's way before Back to the Future. He was a fan of his album cover art, because Drew did the album cover for Welcome to My Nightmare and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. He's done a lot of iconic album covers too. So yeah, I learned about him through the making of the movie. Basically, that's how the story unfolded, you know, as we were making it.
So this is kind of getting in the weeds about actual filmmaking. So when so 2 weeks, you got to go interview George Lucas. I'm assuming you don't just have a bunch of gear you pack up and travel across the country. What do you do? Like, did you fly out to California? Do you rent equipment? Do you hire like people locally to help you with the filming, or what's kind of that whole behind the scenes process to shooting this stuff when you're having to go to different locations? Cause like, who was it? Was it Jane, or what's the actor from, he's in the documentary.
Thomas Jane.
He looked like he was somewhere overseas or something. I don't know where you recorded that, but you could tell it was different locations, and that's typically what happens with documentaries. So what's the process of, like, I'm assuming you don't just pack everything in a truck and drive cross country. You probably, what's the kind of that process?
You know, it's interesting because a lot of people think documentaries are actually easier and cheaper to make, but they're actually much harder to make because you have to get all these interviews. It's not like they all can do them at the same time around your schedule. So if you're making a film where people are all over the country, you have to literally travel all over the country. And that was what was one of the most expensive things was I actually took a crew of my guys from New York to San Francisco to do the original shooting. And the reason why I did that is because if I'm going to, if the first day of shooting is with George Lucas, I'm not going to go with somebody I don't know to shoot it. And because I'm in New York City, at that time, I didn't have close friends that were in production on the West Coast. So me and my team, we, the producer, Charles Ricciardi, Greg Boaz, Tom Mum, we all went over there. We went to, ILM and Skywalker Ranch. We went there and we brought our own equipment. So we actually brought the equipment on the plane. Again, usually I would go with a West Coast crew to save money if I do that now. Like for the Greg Hildabrandt documentary, I have a West Coast cinematographer who shoots all the West Coast stuff. But at that time, I felt more comfortable using guys that I know because there's no second day. As in, if you blow it with George Lucas, you're not getting that again. It's not happening. You blow it, with Harrison Ford and Steven Spielberg, you're not getting it again.
Right.
So you got to get it. And so I was on that one, I was willing to put money from the budget into paying for flights and that sort of thing. Just as a guarantee. All right, I know these guys. I know we'll get it.
That's very cool. Very cool. And how long does it normally, since you mentioned you've got to go on their schedules, whoever you're interviewing. How long does it normally take to put together kind of a documentary from start to actually being able to put it out?
It all depends, again, on the scheduling of how quickly you can shoot it. And then post-production on documentaries take a lot longer than post-production on a scripted film. Because on a scripted film, you just follow the script. You know, this scene goes to this scene, this person says this, and this. And the way I make documentaries, I don't use narrators. And which sometimes I regret, because it would really help me in terms of, if somebody said, and then this happened, and then that happened, But I'd rather the people in the film tell their own stories. I like it when it seems like one continuous conversation between many people. Like people are sharing the same thoughts and ideas.
It seems more organic that way.
Yeah, exactly. Because then it connects them in a way of, oh, look, they all feel the same way about this. They all, it's like when you're trying to present an idea, they're all representing that same idea in their own words, and it becomes like a conversational. And so that takes a long time to do in the edit room, because it's extremely difficult to have one person finish a sentence and then somebody else pick it up and have it totally flow and make sense and progress everything.
Yeah. That really amazed me when I was watching the documentary. I was trying to wrap my brain around, like, how did you, there were some transitions that were just seamless in terms of, like you just said, one person finishes a sentence and the next person is saying almost the same identical thing or continuing the same line of thought. And I was like, well, did you go back and do second interviews with people? Because it was like the flow was just so good during some of those segments.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff that you have to get that day. Because like I said, most of this talent, I couldn't get them again. So what you do with a documentary is you have ideas of different paths you want to go down. And so you'll say, all right, here's like 15 paths that we might want to go down. In the end, you cut it all down because some of those paths lead nowhere. But then some of those paths you strike gold and go, oh, this is a good road to go down. And then you incorporate that into the other interviews you do. And then you start sort of streamlining sort of the areas you're going to touch on and what you're going to go down. Because a lot of times with these cuts, I mean, I know the first Drew Struzan cut was 4.5 hours, Now, if you're a nerd like me, you might be able to sit through 4.5 hours.
I could sit through that.
I would watch that, yeah.
Yep.
But the average moviegoer,
right?
They're not going to stick around for that long. They're not going to stick around for 4-hour movie. Mm-hmm. So you got to get it down to 90 minutes. You have to try to get as lean as possible, so that the average person who might not even know who Drew Struzan is can watch and go, oh, that was an entertaining movie, and I learned about a great artist, and hopefully they walk away loving Drew and his art.
Right. So, Scruff, what we got to do now is we got to start a petition. We need the Zack Snyder cut of the Drew Struzan documentary.
That's what I'm talking about. That I am ready for that right now. That I'll actually stay up for tonight.
Yeah,
that's very kind of you guys.
Yeah. No, I was. So it's funny because Scruff was teasing me the other day because he was like, we were at, I don't know, Star Wars Celebration or something, I think one of them, and he was like, if you could only pick one Star Wars type of thing to collect, what would you collect? And I'm like, probably art, because I love the concept books, and I just love art because it's probably the next closest thing to seeing it on the screen, which is what we all grew up with. And he was surprised because I watched the Drew Struzan documentary a few days ago, and he was surprised I hadn't seen it because he was like, well, you're into art. How could you not have seen that?
How could you not have seen this already?
And it was just one of those things. I love what I love, and I hadn't done a deep dive, and your documentary really enabled me to kind of get into that world. And I was amazed at, and all these posters, all three of us grew up with, and I hadn't realized that it was all the same person. And
thanks, dude. And that's what is shocking when you see how much artwork he's done. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could spend all day just counting off the posters, but it's like, oh, he did the Muppet movie posters, he did John Carpenter's The Thing, like he did the first Harry Potter movie poster. Like, the Goonies, for God's sakes.
The
You know?
Goonies, yes, with the 7 kids and all holding on. Yes,
that was a great story that he actually had
Yes.
kids hanging out to get the perspective so he could paint it. That was hilarious.
I love it. Yeah.
And I love that the poster, the thing, there is just nothing there. But yet it has got to be the most iconic, kind of a little bit terrifying poster that there is.
And, you know, what's amazing,
even though there's nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, what's amazing is how many movies Drew didn't see that he did the posters for. You know, and the thing was a movie where he didn't get any clips, he didn't get anything. He got a synopsis, and that was it. And they basically told him it's a remake of The Thing from the 50s, and that's all he knew. So he had no actors to paint, no scenes to paint. He did, you know, and so his way around it was, I'm just gonna do a striking image that says so much and so little at the same time, and hopefully makes you go, I want to know what this is, you know, because Drew didn't know what it was. So he just had to do like a compelling image. And that's become the image for the movie. When you think about The Thing,
absolutely,
you think about that poster. You know?
Yeah, all done in one night too. And that's just, that amazing. I was really shocked at how humble he was, and you can definitely tell how his early years really shaped him as a person in terms of his work ethic and everything.
Yeah, I mean, he grew up poor.
Yeah,
and I think that says a lot, because especially in this industry, you meet a lot of rich kids, you meet a lot of kids of famous people, and so I always love a story when somebody is born outside of the industry, totally outside of the industry. That is poor. I grew up blue collar. I did not grow up in this industry, you know. So I totally love these stories. They're inspiring when somebody is like, I had no money, but I had talent, and I worked hard at something and was able to achieve it. You know?
Yeah, right on. So from the Drew documentary, you moved on to the Floyd Norman, an animated life documentary.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's interesting because I met Floyd Norman at Comic-Con while I was promoting the Drew Struzan documentary.
That's awesome.
You know, and I had heard of Floyd Norman because we had mutual friends, and they told me about his history, but I'd never met him before. And when I met him, I was just blown away by him, because right away he has these stories that you're just floored by, because it's like he has stories of working with Walt Disney directly. You know what I mean? And there's not a lot of people left who have those stories, you know? And the fact he's the first African-American artist at the company, that he started as an animator on Sleeping Beauty, that he worked on all these classics like Sword in the Stone, that he was in his story about how he got promoted onto Jungle Book is incredible. They used to do gag drawings at Disney, and the artists would, you know, make fun of other animators and do these characters and stuff, and they put them on the wall. Well, Floyd did one of Walt Disney where he did a funny character of Walt Disney. Walt Disney saw it, loved it, thought it was hilarious, saw Floyd did it, and said, I want you to be one of the writers on the Jungle Book, you know? And so Floyd was instrumental in putting the sequences together with Ka the snake, you know? But I just remember talking to him, loving these stories. And luckily around the same time, there was a filmmaker named Michael Fiore, and he was looking to do a project. And he said, hey, are you working on anything? And I told him how I met Floyd, what an amazing person he is, that people should know about this guy. He's a Disney legend, and he hasn't gotten the exposure he deserves to get. He has a very inspiring story. And so luckily he got on board. And then, then I did Floyd Norman, an animated life, which is a movie that is very inspiring. If you love animation, he's an amazing part of animation history, Disney history. He's still working as an artist today. And we got to interview great people for that film, like Whoopi Goldberg, Scarlett Johansson's in the film. Then we have like Paul Dini, Sergio Aragonés, my friend Dean Dubois. I always screw up his last name, Dubois. Anyways, he writes and directs the How to Train Your Dragon movies. He's a great guy.
Okay.
And he worked with Floyd on Mulan. And so all these people came out and again did these interviews to honor Floyd and his legacy, and it's an inspiring movie.
Yeah, I love Floyd Norman. More than anybody else, his work reminds me of my childhood. As my brother and I loved sitting down and watching Disney movies with Mom.
Yeah.
And Jungle Book was one of my favorites. I just love that movie. So yeah, so his work is probably more than anything else reminds me of my childhood. Besides the Star Wars collection behind me. Yeah.
Well, you know what's great about Floyd is that he trained under the 9 Old Men, which were the original Disney animators.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really see that influence. I mean, the way he draws, it does take you back in time. It makes you feel like, oh, this is how beautiful, Jungle Book looked. This is how beautiful Sleeping Beauty looked, or any of those classics, And so he learned firsthand from the best. And to have Walt Disney personally look at his storyboards and go, oh, I like this, I don't like this. And to have those creative conversations. I mean, the people he worked with, the people that trained him, the fact that he's still around, he's still doing art, his art looks great. And he adapted to modern technology, which a lot of people from his generation didn't. He worked at Pixar for years. So he worked on Monsters, Inc. He worked on Toy Story 2. Some of my favorite gags in Toy Story 2 are Floyd Norman gags, like the Barbie dream house. That was Floyd's idea. The dinosaur chasing that whole Jurassic Park bit in the movie. That's another Floyd Norman gag. So just like Drew, his work is such a part of our lives, but we didn't know it, I mean, at least I didn't know about Floyd until a couple of years before I made the movie. It's when I first heard about him. So, and I'm grateful that Floyd did the movie, and I'm grateful through the movie, Floyd and Drew became great friends. So, and Floyd and Drew are both in the Greg Hildabrandt documentary. So
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah.
Floyd is another one I would love to meet someday if I ever had a chance to. Some of these Comic Cons like the big one in California there.
San Diego?
San Diego.
Yeah, he's usually there. He does quick draw most years. He did it last year. I'm very grateful that I was able to get to San Diego last year and see him do quick draw again. And it's great. It's him and Scott Shaw and Sergio, and they have to do it on the spot. It's like improv comedy, but with drawing. So they throw them an idea and they have to do a funny drawing on the spot to the idea. And the stuff they come up with is great.
That's awesome. One of these years, I do want to make sometime soon. Hopefully, I do want to make it out there to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, you guys love it. Yeah, for sure. And he's just such a nice guy. I mean, I'm lucky. I all these guys are so nice. Drew's nice. Floyd's nice. Greg Hildebrandt's nice. They're just good people. So I'm really lucked out. Yeah.
For sure. Okay, so let's kind of transition to the project that you're working on right now, which is the Greg Hildabrandt. And I wanted to throw this up there before we get to that, because and you can see his iconic, and actually I'll flip over to this one. So this is
there we go.
In terms of Star Wars lore, this is the first image that I think all of us fans know of Greg Hildebrandt's.
For sure. That's a very iconic poster. I had it on my wall as a kid, and I love it. It's such a part of Star Wars iconography and history. And Greg and his brother Tim, they did that poster in 36 hours, which is kind of mind-boggling.
Wow,
that's crazy. That's crazy.
I have probably the re-release of A New Hope. It was probably summer of '82. It's the one with that image in the background with the Star Wars New Hope re-released, and it has the coming soon Revenge of the Jedi tag across the bottom right corner. That's one of my favorite posters because of that iconic image.
Right on.
And it's an actual movie theater poster too. It's not a reproduction.
Oh, I love it. I don't even have one of those, so I'm jealous. That's awesome, dude.
So what was your transition going into this film in terms of what got you deciding that you wanted to take on Greg Hildabrandt as your next subject?
Well, I interviewed Greg for the Drew Struzan doc. So he's in the Drew Struzan doc, and he was just such a great guy. And I'd lost touch with him for some years. And then I saw him at New York Comic Con. I was actually, for about 7 years, I was a writer for HuffPost for the entertainment section. So I would cover geek stuff. And so I went to Comic Con to write about it. And I saw Greg there. I saw his booth. And so I started reconnecting with him and we started talking. I said, I'd love to do an interview with you for HuffPost, like a spotlight on you. Because at that time I was writing spotlights on Illustrator. So I did Drew Struzan, Paul Shipper, Mark Rates, Kyle Lambert, a lot of illustrators I loved. I was writing, doing interviews and writing about them. And so I went and talked to Greg and hanging out with him and just him telling me stories about his life. I was just like, you have such a great personality. You have such a great history. You've done so much work over the years, work that I've loved since childhood, that right then and there, I was like, oh man, I want to make a movie about Greg, So again, I pitched it to Greg and his wife, Jean. His wife, Jean, is his manager, and she's a great manager, but a tough manager. So convincing Greg was easy. Convincing Jean was a little harder. But they saw my other films. They talked to other people that they know. We have a lot of mutual friends who vouched for me and said, he's a good guy. He'll make a good movie, And so then we started shooting. And again, all these great artists right away wanted to be in the film. So like Walt Simonson or Joe Quesada, Joe Jusko. We got Michael Uslan, who was in that picture, produced the Batman movies. Drew Struzan's in it. William Stout's in it. Floyd Norman, Phil Tippett, who did all those amazing Star Wars effects, is in it. And so all these people wanted to be in the movie, and it was going great. We were shooting. We had momentum. But 2020 hit. We started shooting in 2019. And the pandemic screwed all that up. And so that sidelined everything. And then we started shooting again. And now we're almost done. I mean, pretty much by next month, we'll be done shooting. I've already got a rough cut that I've gotten it down to now. It's about an hour and 45 minutes. I think for the average person, you want to keep it around that range, so you don't lose them.
Right.
But again, it could be a 6-hour movie. I mean, there's so much stuff.
I would love for you to release the average person cut and then the ultimate nerd cut.
Yeah, there you go.
Totally.
I would sit through the ultimate nerd cut, no problem.
Oh, thanks, man.
Give me a frozen pizza, a bag of popcorn, and I'm good to go, man. I will sit there the whole time.
Oh, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that.
Ultimate nerd cut.
The ultimate. They call it the ultimate nerd cut too, please.
There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah, I am hoping this brings Greg's work to a broader audience, like it did for Drew and Floyd, because everyone has seen that Star Wars poster. That is one of the most iconic images in movie history. And Greg's had an incredible career outside of Star Wars too. He did all that great Tolkien art in the 70s. He's done all this Marvel art. He did the album cover for Black Sabbath's Mob Rules, which was an album I loved as a kid. Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. So
The Secret of Nim.
Oh yeah, that's his brother Tim. That is a great one too. Yeah.
Did he or Tim do Clash of the Titans?
Greg did Clash of the Titans. Yeah. Another iconic poster that we get into in the film. One of the people we interview actually is Ben Stevens, who owns a gallery in Texas that showcases all of Drew's work. So if you want to buy any Drew Struzan prints or originals, you go to Ben Stevens. But he also sells a lot of Greg's work.
Stevens?
Yep, Ben Stevens. He runs a
Okay,
company.
here's the part of the show where I lose track and start writing some stuff down.
That's okay. He also runs a company called Official Picks. So if you go to a convention and
I know
and meet,
Official Picks.
yeah, he runs it. So if you meet Mark Hamill or you
I've got a bunch of that stuff here.
But in his gallery, he owns the original Clash of the Titans painting.
Ooh.
So we interviewed
so
him
cool.
at the gallery with the actual painting behind him.
Where in Texas is that?
It's great. It's in just outside of Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law lives in Fort Worth, so hey, Ron, Courtney, Connor, I may be coming down to see you.
Check it out, dude. Check it out. I mean, so many Drew originals that are there. It's incredible. He's got Cannonball Run and Better Off Dead, and
Better Off Dead was one of my ultimate favorites.
Yeah, yeah.
There's nothing better than some of those one-liners from Better Off Dead.
Come on. I want my $2. Who can?
I want my $2.
So in college, back, well, we're all the same age. So back in college, back then you couldn't buy that movie. You could only rent it. You couldn't buy it anywhere. And so anytime anyone in the crew went through a breakup, we went straight to the video store. We rented that movie and brought it back, and we watched it.
And that's one of my other favorite line. Well, you make a fine little helper. What's your name?
I always loved. Sorry, your mom blew up, Ricky.
Yep. Sorry, your mom blew up, Ricky.
My son Brownie One and I quote that to each other all the time. Sorry, Ricky. I'm sorry your mom blew up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. First of all, you are a good parent. You're raising your kid on good movies. And how cool is that? He loves the movie. That is great.
I think that earned him Father of the Year award a few years ago. I'm like, okay, you are officially Father of the Year.
Yeah,
that is awesome. Because I know people who are trying to raise their kids on Star Wars, and believe it or not, they're like, this movie's boring. And you go, what?
Yeah, no, you failed as a parent. Your kids think Star Wars is boring.
Yeah. My kids appreciate Star Wars. My youngest Brownie One, he was definitely way into Star Wars when he was little. We've got pictures of him, in pajamas and costumes, and
how cool!
And of course, I always bought him the lightsabers and everything. So he's probably the biggest Star Wars out of all the kids. But no, they all appreciate it for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But definitely not the same love as all of us, in terms of growing up on it.
Well, also you gotta remember, like, kids are growing up on so much cool stuff. We did not have all this cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We did not have all these Marvel movies and all these big adventure movies and science fiction movies. Like, we got Star Wars, and then
every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
Yeah, I don't have to, it's like 5 minutes now. It was 5 minutes later. Oh, the new one's on. Let's go watch that.
Yeah. And then you wanted more Star Wars, and what did you get? The black hole. Like, we weren't getting inundated with all this stuff. Now, I love the black hole. Me too. But as a kid,
outside of Star Wars, that's the most iconic soundtrack. That eerie. Yes.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that movie.
But we didn't have the options, every time we got a new film, we were so excited.
Oh.
It was like, oh my God, Krull. I got it. This, which, by the way, Greg Hildabrandt designed the glaive in Krull.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
That is awesome.
Well, that's another thing we get
into. But nobody jumped in and said, oh my word, Star Trek the motion picture.
Wasn't that the biggest letdown of all time?
It was crushing. Now,
I was so excited for this movie because I love the show, and it was so boring.
I didn't mind the TV show, but I was never a huge fan of it. But I love all the Star Trek movies. So the motion picture, when it first came out, I was a little let down on it, but now I love it. I watch it once
I'm
in
with
a while.
you. Because I think the problem was when you're a kid and you love Star Wars, you're like, I want to see some action.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie is very cerebral. Nothing really happens. As an adult, I love it because I get lost in those effects and the scope of it. I think it's the best looking of all the original movies in terms of the scope and effects,
I hesitate because there's nothing like Wrath of Khan.
No, that's the best movie.
And these guys know I am not a Star
one.
Trek fan at all, but I love the Wrath of Khan. I mean, that's just epic.
Yeah, and that's when ILM came in. Actually, that's the first one.
They rescued him.
That was great. But in the first movie, in terms of what they spent, that one has like the biggest production value because they went crazy with the budget, and then after that, they reined it in and made better stories. Thank God, because
Yeah.
but Wrath of Khan was great, and I like 3. I love 4. So
Yep,
I love it.
absolutely. I love the rest of them.
And who knew they were telling the future? Because I think Voyager's about to enter the V'ger stage. Based
Oh,
on
it is. Yes.
Well, they lost
Amazing.
communication, and now all of a sudden it's communicating again.
It's
they don't
communicating
know why.
weird things. And
Yep.
It's V'ger now.
I think we're about to enter the V'ger phase.
Yes,
I love it. I love it. It all comes back around.
Right. On. So
what? Any other documentaries planned out that you can talk about?
Nothing solid just yet, because I still have a ways to go with finishing this one, because I still have to have the score done. I still have to do the color correct, and I haven't put any of the artwork in the movie yet, which is like the most important thing. So I've basically laid out the story, and I know the story works, and I think a lot of people are going to be interested in it. Greg and Tim not only did the iconic poster, but they did a lot of artwork for Shadows of the Empire. So they were a big part of that campaign. And Greg continues to do Star Wars art from Marvel. Actually, Greg does a lot of artwork from Marvel in general.
Yes, he does.
That's another deep dive in this movie as well, that we get into comic book art as well. And Greg did a lot of heavy metal covers back in the day in terms of the magazine Heavy Metal, which was a magazine I loved as a kid. So we get into that, and so there's a lot of things people love in terms of nerdom, but there's also a really compelling story. Greg is just a guy who's had a really interesting life, and another guy came from Detroit, Michigan, moved to New York. And, and the fact that they got Star Wars, I mean, they had to do this thing in 36 hours. And they never saw the movie. They just had stills. They didn't know what the thing really was about. And they had to knock it out in 36 hours. And it's amazing.
That just blows my mind alone, because, they captured the essence of the movie in that poster without ever having seen the movie.
Yep. And they had no idea. They had no idea Star Wars was going to be a hit. So they're painting this thing going, who knows who will really see it. It becomes one of the most famous paintings in the world.
To me, it was always one of the best representations of the space opera theme to the genre. It was Struzan's art was, a little different. Like his initial art was definitely that spaghetti Western, space feel. And then, Greg's was that space opera poster,
Well, that's what George Lucas, that was the directive that he gave them, which is, he said, I want it to look like either a pulp sci-fi novel cover or a comic book cover. But he wanted that pulp aspect of it. So he was like, I don't want it to look photoreal at all. I want it to look like an old sci-fi novel cover, So it does give off this sort of very classic sort of illustration vibe to it that I really dig.
For sure. What's been something that in your career was something that you never would have expected to have learned, or something that surprised you about the filmmaking process that was just kind of blew your mind?
Things that I got to see up close, like, shooting on the Disney lot. I got to see the multiplane cameras they used to use for animation, and just seeing how, it's a camera looking down over all these sheets, and they would lay all the animation cells, and that's how they got all that depth of field, or even like getting to spend a lot of time at Lucasfilm. I got to see firsthand how much George Lucas has affected the industry, how it's because of Lucasfilm that we had digital editing. It's because of Lucasfilm that we got Pixar. And also just seeing how Lucasfilm, before Disney bought it, is actually an independent film studio. Now, I know a lot of people think that might sound crazy, but George Lucas owned it. It was his. It wasn't a big corporation with a board of directors and everything. It's like a family business, that just happens to make Star Wars and Indiana Jones.
Right.
But in terms of being an outsider of Hollywood, George Lucas is a real maverick, and he single-handedly develops all this special effects technology with ILM, giving us digital editing. You know, John Knoll from ILM was one of the people behind Photoshop, giving us, you know, all the foundation for Pixar, what would become Pixar. So I'm blown away by just basically by what George Lucas has given to the film industry in ways that I wasn't even really aware of until I made the film about Drew.
So what was the when getting to sit down with George at Skywalker Ranch, what was going on inside your head getting to sit down with the man himself? And you said you got 90 minutes with him.
I was terrified. I'm not even going to try to play it cool. I was so scared. And especially since that was the first interview. It's not like we even did other interviews that
you get to build
got
up
me
to that
used
one.
to it. Yeah. And, you know, especially since he's the guy who made me want to make movies. So he's the first director I ever knew of loved. He's the reason why I wanted to make movies at all. So I was so intimidated. In fact, Drew and Dylan, his wife Dylan, loved to joke like, "Oh my God, you were just totally pale." You know, I'm shocked I got through it, to be honest. You know what I mean? And George, who was very nice, but he's not the most outgoing person. He's he's pretty introverted, and his answers are very much like, "Okay, sure, yeah." So, you know, you don't
elaborate,
really get a big
talk,
conversation.
Right,
You know what I mean? Once we did the interview, then he was very good at talking. But just in terms of small talk, it was like, "Oh, okay, oh, cool." You know? In fact, I have audio because they were mic'd. I have audio of Drew and George small talking. You know. And what was interesting is because Drew is so introverted, they have like the same personality. So Drew would just be like, "So what are you working on?" And George like, "I'm doing a thing about, you know, fighter pilots." But it was so like run of the mill,
Right.
just so reserved. And I think Drew being there really, really helped because it made me less nervous and it made George happier to be there. Because Drew is there and he loves Drew's work. And so just seeing them together and interacting and seeing how much, you know, George loves Drew's work, how Drew is so grateful to George for all the work he's given him over the years and being loyal to him. I mean, even when illustration went way out of fashion, George Lucas kept hiring Drew because he wanted those posters. And so I was terrified. But George Lucas was very nice. Lucasfilm gave us so much support throughout the movie. Like I said, we got to mix the movie at Skywalker Ranch. So I'm very grateful. But yes, I was terrified. I have to, that and Harrison Ford. I was terrified to interview Harrison Ford.
Oh, yeah.
That was really intimidating, too. But he was very nice. And again, having Drew there really helped because Harrison really did gush about Drew's work, just like George did, which is amazing to see up close.
So Scruffy, remember when you win the lottery and we do our fanboys recreation.
Yes,
we've got Eric who's got the inside scoop in terms of what the layout is of Skywalker Ranch.
Yes, you're gonna get us the inside scoop on the layout of Skywalker Ranch, so we can break in and steal a copy of the next movie.
Yeah, that's hilarious, and I love fanboys.
I love fanboys
Great
too.
Movie.
I swear, someday I'm gonna win the lotto. I'm building that van, and we are driving.
That's right.
We're out.
I love it
for sure. So Scruff, did you have other questions in terms of the documentaries or anything?
No, you answered everything I ever dreamed of.
Thanks.
It was just great to hear the info and have you on, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it, man.
What's something, so anybody that's kind of an aspiring filmmaker, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say you really, really have to love it. Because even though there is more content than ever, it's harder and harder to make money as a filmmaker. because of all that content. What happened to the music business has happened to the film business, which is streaming means less money because you're not selling physical media where you can mark up prices. Netflix, and I'm very grateful that my documentaries have been on Netflix and Hulu and Prime and all the major streaming services, but they pay you up front one sum, and you're not going to make any more than that. You know what I mean? So if you do it, you really have to love it. But I will say, if you love it, the rewards are incredible, because if I hadn't pursued filmmaking, I never would have met my heroes. I never would have gotten to make a movie that my heroes were in and involved with. I never would have these relationships. And the things that have happened to me because of the movie. I got to go out to dinner with Drew and Anthony Daniels, and what I mean? I got to knock back beers with Ray Park, who loved my documentary about Drew. And I'm hanging out with Darth Maul, and he's seen my movie, and these things come from filmmaking, and these things are more valuable to me than money. You know what I mean? So you can do it. The good thing about all these streaming services is there's more distribution than ever. So if you make a film, you have a good chance of getting it distributed and having people see it. And there's nothing better if you're creative than creating something and knowing it connects with an audience, knowing people like it. And I have friends that have made it big in this industry, and they started off doing small films and short films, and they've made it big, So don't give up, stick to it. But if you're going to do it because you love it. And that love will show in what you make. So.
That's very cool. Very cool. And I like your whole story too from the beginning was you didn't see a Drew Struzan documentary out there, so you made what you wanted to see. And I think that's another powerful message, because you were completely passionate and sold on the project in terms of what you wanted to do. So very cool. Do you think the Greg Hildabrandt might be out later this year, or you think it might be a 2025 kind of release?
It all depends. The film should be finished by early next year, but then it's all comes down to distribution.
Right.
As of now, we don't have a distributor. It's a passion project. It's made independently, but I have a lot of distributors interested. So I'm talking to a lot of distributors. So I know it will get out there and it will be available to stream through a good distributor. But when they pick up your film, it all depends on their schedule. They can release it in 4 months, or they can release it in 6 months, and then it's like out of your hands. But yeah, definitely look out for it. It will be coming soon. And like I said, the story's all laid out. I think it's a compelling story about a great artist, and you'll learn a lot, especially if you grew up in the era we grew up in. You're going to see a lot of stuff and go, I remember that. It's iconic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah. Well,
thanks.
I was really impressed with how you put the story together on the Drew Struzan documentary, and I'm looking forward to watching the Floyd Norman. So folks, definitely check out his documentaries that are already out there for sure. And I think, Scruffy, we're going to have to let DB know that we're going to put Popstar Private Eye on DB's blockbuster list. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
So we do a segment on the show from time to time where our other co-host DB managed a blockbuster back in the day.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So we do little 5 to 15 minute segments from time to time on films from kind of back in the day. And I think we're gonna that's a more recent film, but I think we're gonna
it's got to be on there.
We'll strong. He usually picks the film, but we'll strong arm him and make sure we make that.
Oh, I love it.
We're gonna really put that into rotation.
That's
really okay.
Silly and campy.
That's better. That'd be better yet.
He could rip it apart. It won't hurt my feelings. He could be totally.
We love camp. I mean,
absolutely.
And anybody that's a longtime listener or viewer of ours also loves camp, because they must if they continue to.
Yeah, if they're still watching this. Yeah, they're still watching this. It says mountains about their personality.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate that.
Well, Eric, when that film comes, when you're getting ready to release, you're invited back for sure. And actually, you're invited anytime you want to come. anytime you want to come on the show, you're welcome for sure. We'd love to have you because it's just who doesn't love reminiscing about the old times, right? So
dude, thank you
that's
so
all we
much,
got.
man.
That's all we got anymore.
I hear you, man. They were good times, all right.
they were good times.
Yes,
And-
they were.
And and kind of on a final note, there was something towards the end of the documentary where the segment about the Drew Struzan documentary about the poster art becoming a lost form,
That really tugged at me because it's like, oh my word, that's absolutely correct.
And they're not wrong. I mean, with computers and everything and graphic artists, it's so easy with a couple clicks of the mouse nowadays to just start replacing everything, and it's definitely got me looking at posters differently for sure.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, because I think of current movie posters, I think the only one I really loved was the Fanboys poster, just because it was that goofy iconic image, the 40-year-old virgin / Darth Vader helmet image. But
totally.
But beyond that, they're not the same as they were back then.
Well, the studios started feeling like painted posters were too old-fashioned looking. And they had this weird idea that people would think a film is animated if it has a painted poster, which is odd. But luckily, after the Drew documentary came out, in the following years, I started seeing a resurgence of illustrated posters. And they're being done by the next generation of illustrators that grew up on guys like Drew Struzan and Greg Hildabrandt and Amsel and all these great illustrators that we grew up on. And there are guys like Jason Edmonston or Paul Shipper. There's a guy named Mark Rates. There's a company called Mondo that really in Texas really spearheads a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is that familiar?
That's
they're in Austin, Texas.
Talking Bay 94.
Talking Bay 94, yes.
Brian Winerdy works for Mondo.
Oh,
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. So basically, there are young artists that want to do illustrated movie posters, and they do them on their own. They'll license the rights to do something for Star Wars or other things. And so there is this sort of underground world of illustrators doing illustrated movie posters, and they are great. These posters are fantastic, and I hope that keeps going.
Oh yeah,
I do too, because I mean, like I said earlier, you can take a picture of Harrison Ford and you see emotion on his face, but Drew can take that same picture, recreate it, and just add so much more depth and emotion to that face than original, and just that those posters just meant so much to me and so much to the movie industry and how they depicted the emotion of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were larger than life. That's what's great about them. Whereas a photograph, it's just a photograph. It's just a dude with a hat on if it's a photograph. If it's a painting, it's like, oh my God, what is this? It just leaps off the page. I mean, I know Drew's posters got me excited about movies that I knew nothing about. I saw the Back to the Future poster before I ever saw a trailer or anything. I just saw that image and go, I gotta see this, man. This looks incredible. And a photograph would not have the same impact.
No, it is amazing how that's changed. Because we were all born in the early 70s, 71 here, and just how we didn't see the trailer, but we saw those posters. The magazines that we bought, the Fangora, some of those other magazines. I don't remember what they are off the top of my head, but that's what we saw. Starlog, yes, Starlog, yes. I love Starlog. But that's where we saw those images, and that was our first introduction to some of those movies before a trailer. We didn't have it like today. I can go into YouTube and pull up any trailer and watch it.
Yeah. And when we grew up, illustration was everywhere. You know what I mean? So, all these posters that we saw, they were painted. All these comic books that we saw, they were all done by hand. And that adds another element too. First of all, if you have a painting, you can sell an original painting. Drew is retired. He makes his living selling those original paintings. You can't do that with a digital file.
Yeah. I love that section about, as I did not know that he didn't have his original work and how he was able to get that back.
Yeah, he got ripped off for years by a manager who was hoarding all the paintings. He was saying that the studios were keeping them and he was keeping them.
Mhm.
Luckily, he was able to get them all back, but there were a lot of iconic paintings in there, you know.
Yeah.
And I believe one of them might have been the circus painting.
My favorite image.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's funny because that's what George Lucas told me. He said his absolute favorite of all the paintings is the circus one. So, which happened by accident. You know, we talk about in the film that they painted it the wrong size and they didn't have room for the credit block. So they just said,
and they had to add
what if we
Obi-Wan
make
on the side.
Yeah, they extended the sides and said, what if we make it look like it was getting ripped off a wall?
Yeah.
So it's a totally unique poster. I mean, and that's there's a lack of creativity now in a lot of movie posters. It's just bad Photoshop. It's just throwing a bunch of heads together, and it lacks imagination. You know, I think, at least.
Right.
I agree.
Right on. All right. Well, again, everybody check out the documentaries for sure. And you know, they're definitely well worth the time and what you learn and the experience of it. So
Absolutely.
All right, let's move over into collection corner.
What is this place? What is it that you do here? Merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Open up this door. Come, walk this way. Take a look. We put the picture's name on everything. Merchandising, where the real money from the movie is made.
Yeah. So, all right.
And then someday, all this stuff behind me is going to be worth at least half of what I paid for it.
Right on. Okay, Scruffy. Yesterday was Comic Book Wednesday. Plus, we also had what was last Saturday?
Oh, free comic book day.
That's right.
So I did go and pick up a couple of the free comics. They are here somewhere. So last week we started the well, I refer to as the man cave. It's actually the basement, but we started the cleaning, and everything kind of got jumbled around. So I lost a few things. They're here. Just don't know where they're at. So yes, comic book day, and then also arrived Claudia Gray, the
nice.
The High Republic Into the Dark. As not next weekend after, we are heading to Motor City Comic Con, where
nice.
I hope to get that autograph by Claudia Gray herself.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be an awesome trip. Well, we're going down to see Paul Sun
Hyung Lee.
Yes, Paul Sun Hyung Lee.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he plays Carson Teva on a lot of the live action Star Wars stuff, and he was his first breakout role was Kim's Convenience, which was a sitcom up in Toronto.
Oh, totally, yeah, of course, yeah.
And so I've got the Black Series helmet. We're gonna have him sign that. We're gonna do the group photo with him, and
cool.
And we're making some custom T-shirts for us to wear, and we're gonna give him one when we're down there. So
promote our $1 million project.
Person
Teva Intergalactic Popo.
Teva and Reed, Intergalactic
Teva and Reed,
Popo.
yes. Teva and Reed, yeah. We're gonna see if we can't become millionaires too.
A lethal weapon style kind of action comedy in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, I dig that. Hasn't been done before, as far as I know. So
no, but then somebody's gonna say, "I'm getting too old for this shit."
Exactly. I can totally hear him saying that.
Yep,
I love it.
Yeah. So,
and then the other piece we picked up, actually, one of them is directly behind Brown Leader there.
Oh yeah,
the Hyperspace Heroes blanket.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So
dude.
all of us have birthdays in the month of May, and so
me too.
Happy birthday.
18.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to you guys.
And we all work at the same place, and our staff knows all of us. We interact in our jobs. We're in separate departments, but we interact a lot, and they know all of us. And and they know we do this show. So they had custom blankets made for all three of us, and they have it's kind of hard to show on this one because I got it pinned down, but it's got our call signs at the bottom of each of the blanket. And
that's cool.
Yeah. So we got those this week. Anything else, Scruff?
No, that's pretty much it. I'm kind of we're on the spending hiatus. I'm saving everything I've got for the Imperial Commissary Collectors Convention in Nashville in October. This year.
Oh, nice.
So I'm saving every penny because and plus I got to take some of the collection with me to sell because Times are tough.
Mhm.
I hear you, man.
Actually, no, I just don't have enough room for it all.
Eric, I know you were
Yes,
kind of
sir.
teasing us with a piece before we
Yes.
started recording.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have something
Show me
here.
this again.
It's an original. I don't know if you can see it. It's an original drawing by Greg Hildabrandt of Boba Fett.
Oh,
Let me
that
see
is
if I can get
awesome.
the
That is
signature. There's the
so
signature
awesome.
right there.
Oh, wow.
And this drawing ended up being, when it was finished, it was used for a Marvel Star Wars comic book cover. So
Okay.
it's
Now, is that
an awesome drawing, original art. You know,
Is that Tale of the Bounty or War of the Bounty Hunter cover?
I believe
probably?
it was for they re-released all the original run of the Marvel Star Wars comics in these giant books.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so it's one of those covers, and Boba Fett is like one aspect of
The
the cover. There's other
compendium,
stuff on there. Yeah,
That's very cool. That's very cool. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Very jealous
Oh,
for
thanks,
sure.
man.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I love Greg's work. You know, so
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to have it.
That is such an awesome piece.
For sure. So, so also my staff, or actually Scruffy, DB, and some of my staff chipped in for my birthday, and I haven't gotten it out of the box yet.
Nice.
But it's the Hot Toys Boba
Yeah,
Fett.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is pretty
That
dope.
rocks.
And it's funny because I've hung with these guys for so long now that with Scruffy and DB as collectors, and I wasn't really much of a collector before I started this show, but
We're turning them.
actually when I opened the box, I debated even opening the plastic bag that it was sealed in. I actually questioned myself if I was going to do that.
Well, now you just got to buy a second one to open, one to leave in the box.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, but no, I'll get that on display here at some point. Then Mrs. Brown Leader struck again. She actually went thrifting this morning. She found just a little
Grogu.
Oh, that's cool.
can mount him. It's got like a screw hole in the back, so I can mount him somewhere. So I'll put him up on the wall somewhere. But this was kind of cool, and she found a bag of, they're like Easter eggs, but they're all
Yes.
Darth Vader helmets.
I
So
love it.
I thought that was kind of, yeah, for sure. So
I recognize those. I don't remember why.
I'm gonna get those washed up, but yeah, it was very very cool. She sent me a picture of that, and I was like, yeah, go ahead and grab that.
Yeah.
She got like a whole bag of them for like $1, so it was like,
Oh, that's it.
yeah.
Wow.
So that was a
Yeah.
steal. Yeah,
No,
no. Mrs. Brown Leader has become one of my greatest sources of thrift finds.
She came through for you, man.
She does come through to me quite a bit. It's great. It's absolutely great. But
yeah, we are fortunate that the wives do support the habits, the hobbies.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
A lot of the stuff behind me is because she's like, I really think you should buy that. No, I'm gonna hold off. No, I really think you should buy it. Okay, click, done.
Oh, that's so cool, man. I mean, you guys definitely have keepers, that's for sure.
Oh,
man.
absolutely,
They're
absolutely.
looking out for you guys, you know.
For sure. Okay, so before we go into the last segment, Eric, why don't you kind of tell everybody where they can find you, find your and your work?
Oh, awesome, dude. Please forgive me if this goes on a little long, but
Take time.
Awesome. Popstar Private Eye, if you want to check that out, is available on Tubi, which is 100% free, but you got to sit through ads. Drew, the Man Behind the Poster, you can either rent it or buy it to stream on Amazon. Or if you want to see it for free, it's available to stream for free on Roku, but with ads. Floyd Norman, An Animated Life, is available to stream on the Criterion channel. And you can follow my movies on social media. You can follow me. I'm Erik Sharkey 1 on Twitter. You can follow the Greg Hildabrandt documentary on Facebook for more updates. And you can follow Drew, the Man Behind the Poster, on Facebook as well. And I'll be putting updates on the Hildabrandt Facebook page about how the movie's going. And hope you guys dig these movies, man.
Absolutely.
We will.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
So,
man.
okay, so before we get Scruffy ready with the final, you gonna do the graphic? I'll do the intro music.
Hit it.
All right, here we go. Dad joke of the week. Time to annoy Scruffy and DB. Dad joke of the week. All right.
Yeah, he put that together in the 20 minutes it took him to get home from work one night.
Yeah,
I love it, man. That's funny.
Mm-hmm.
And sadly, I kind of like it, actually.
I like it, dude. That was awesome.
I want to be upset with him, but yeah, it's not bad.
All right.
Just let's do this.
All right. What do space slugs call starships?
What?
Delicious.
Yeah. No, that was a winner.
There you go.
That was awesome. Okay, that one, yes. I can get behind that one.
That was Dad Joke of the Week. Now don't you feel absolutely complete?
There we go. Dad joke of the week. All right. Eric, it's been a joy having you on. One last thing we do before we do the final sign off. So all guests on the show become honorary members of the Brown Squadron. So with that, you get
Get out of here.
You get a flight designation and a call sign. And
No way.
Yeah. So you are, let's see if I can flip over to my thing in time. So you are going to be known as Brown 52 and the call sign is Den. And where Den comes from is Den Dur, a Solistan journalist and war correspondent for the Galactic Wave, who gained brief acclaim for his reporting during the Battle of Drongar, including a report on the exploits of cold-blooded mercenary Fo Ji, who was spun up by the media despite Dur's efforts otherwise into a hero of the Republic. So yeah,
Love
so
it.
I was
Love
looking. I usually try to find something. There's really not much for documentary filmmakers in the Star Wars universe. I had to kind of, and surprisingly there wasn't really, because then I thought maybe something painting related, because you're doing the documentaries on all the painters, and there's really not a lot of characters built around painting.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
actually, yeah.
So Den. So welcome to the crew.
Dude, I love it. I appreciate it. And I like that name. Den's a good name. Easy to remember, man.
Exactly. So, Eric, you're welcome on the show anytime. We'd love to have you back, talk about your projects, or even if you just want to nerd out with us for a while, you're welcome back anytime to.
Oh, thank you guys so much. This was so much fun, man.
Yeah.
It's a weekly nerd fest here.
It is.
I love it. Well,
sure.
I'm a nerd, so I love
it. To find he listed everywhere to find all this stuff. I'm definitely going to throw a follow on the Facebook group so we can keep track on how the movie's going for you for sure.
Thank you.
Again, I can't stress how good the documentaries are. So definitely check those out. They're well worth, if you're in a nerd culture like we are, definitely it's worth the time to sit down and watch those. And you might learn something, because I know I did for sure. So and with that, I think we will get out of here. If you want to follow Hyperspace Heroes, we're on all the socials. Definitely check us out, DM us, join us on the weekly chats here. We're on X or Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we are on YouTube live every Thursday night at 8:00. Give us a shout out. You can email us at brownsquadron@gmail.com. And with that, I think, let me flip over to the right screen. And with that, I think we're going to get out of here tonight, guys. Eric, it's been a joy having you on the show tonight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And this is Brown Leader signing off for the crew. And you have been listening and watching Hyperspace Heroes. That's no moon. Yeah. And we're going to go with this one.
Was it good for you?